So y'all know this now. If you didn't know this, man, it is so late, and I am so sorry for the amount of trouble that you've been in. But last Sunday was Mother's Day. And so my son, AJ, and I, we decided, Jennifer was out of town, and so we decided we were going to do a little bit of yard work, just kind of as a little bit of a present, I guess, for Jennifer there. And so in our backyard, we've got these bushes off to the left, and there are these vines that it kind of like started growing up over the past 6 years or so. And so we decided it's probably time to do some yard work, right? Probably time to do some yard work. And so I was like, I'm just going to go out there, get the gloves on, just start yanking stuff out of the ground and doing those kind of things. And it's like, I'll probably be done by lunchtime and be ready to roll and just like have the rest of the afternoon to just like watch golf on TV, those kind of things. And so we get out there, and these vines were a much bigger problem than what I really realized that they were. And so these vines, they started like wrapping around the bushes, wrapped around like even the bird bath, and all these things. And so what I thought was just going to be a super simple project of just yank a few vines up out of the ground ended up being, we had to dig out like all the bushes because the bushes were dead because they just been choked out by these nasty, just devil vines that, had grown up in that backyard. But it was funny, like as we were working for those 8 hours that day, it just kept going. It's like, all right, we got to get down to the root of this, because it's like if we don't get down to the root of these vines and we don't get the whole root out of this, and then it was like if we don't get the root of the bush out of the ground now, it's like we're going to have the same problem, 6 years from now whenever we do yard work again. And it's like we got to get rid of these things, right? You got to get, and you guys know this. I'm not telling you anything else that you don't know. It's like if you want to really get something out like that, you got to get all the way down to the root of the problem, right? You got to get down to the root of the thing that is causing all the nastiness, all the destruction, all the choking, all those kind of things. You got to get it all out if you really want to be able to move forward. And today we're in week 4 of No Offense, and we've been looking at this idea of what would it look like if we were able to live life unoffended? What would it look like if we were people who just said, I'm going to refuse to be offended? I'm going to refuse to take offense whenever things go, wrong, or whenever people mistreat me. I'm just going to refuse to be an offended person. And so for 4 weeks now, we've been exploring what would this look like? How could we do this? How could we begin to live life in that manner? And today, we're going to be talking about if we want to be unoffended people who live life with no offense, we're going to have to learn to kill the root of bitterness. So we're talking about bitterness today, and if we want to start working through just what is this idea, it's been said that bitterness is unforgiveness fermented. And I love that picture. A few years ago, it was during the pandemic, we tried to do sourdough starter, which is fermented dough. And, you start to feed that thing and it starts to bubble up and it starts to fester. And it's a positive fermentation that allows things to go well until it doesn't and it turns green. And then, you've got those things. It's like this picture of, like this little jar of unforgiveness sitting on your countertop. And it's just sitting there. And all this unforgiveness is just fermenting and it's bubbling and it's starting to burst. And it's starting to pop and it's starting to foam. And that's what bitterness is. It's unforgiveness that is fermented. Psychology Today says this, that all bitterness starts out as hurt. And your emotional pain may well relate to viewing whoever or whatever provoked this hurt as having malicious intent, as committing a grave injustice towards you, a gratuitous wrong, and causing you grief. It goes on to say that anger and resentment is what we're all likely to experience whenever we conclude that someone has seriously wronged us and left to fester. Listen to this. That righteous anger eventually becomes the corrosive ulcer that is bitterness. Fermented unforgiveness, a corrosive ulcer. Man, it sounds like bitterness might be something we need to kind of pay attention to in our lives. In fact, the author of Hebrews, and we don't know his name, talks about this in Hebrews chapter 12. written in the first century to a group of Christians that were struggling. They were in danger of giving up. Life was getting hard. Life was getting difficult. Persecution's on the rise. They're not bad people by any stretch of the imagination, but they are experiencing difficulty and bad things. And so this writer encourages them and says, don't give up. And in this letter that he writes to this church, he gives them a simple, profound warning. It's in Hebrews chapter 12. We'll start off in verse 14. We're going to look at just 2 verses, 3 sentences here. It says this: work at living in peace with everyone, and work at living a holy life, for those who are not holy will not see the Lord. Look after each other so that none of you fails to receive the grace of God. And then here's the key verse, verse 15. Watch out that no poisonous root of bitterness grows up to trouble you, corrupting many. Man, there's a lot packed into those sentences, isn't there? Let's just walk through this real quick. So it says, work at living in peace with everyone. In other words, peace is not natural. Peace is not where we just naturally start to flow. Peace is something that you and I, we have to put effort into. If we are going to live at peace with people, you can't just let the stream of life take you where it wants to take you. You have to work at it. You have to take effort. You have to do these things. It's something that requires work and effort. Just like living a holy life requires work and effort, so does living at peace with people. And so the writer is basically saying to all of us as well, he's like, so you need to work at this and be sure that you don't block the grace of God coming into somebody else's life. Because one of the things that will block the grace of God for other people is your anger and your bitterness. But then it offers the warning: watch out that no poisonous root of bitterness grows up to trouble you, corrupting many. It calls it a root of bitterness. You know the thing about a root? I'm going to blow your minds real quick. You can't see them. They're like underground, right? You can't see them. They're invisible. In other words, it's what you can't see deep beneath the surface of the soil that if you leave it unchecked is going to end up growing up, sprouting up, and doing all kinds of things. And in the same way, this root of bitterness is deep beneath the surface of the soul. And if you leave it unchecked, it's going to slowly grow deeper and deeper and deeper and rob me of the life that God wants us to have. That's what bitterness does. So let's kind of create a working definition of bitterness for the rest of this morning. So whenever I say bitterness, here's what I want you to think. Bitterness is the result of unresolved, unforgiven anger and resentment built up over time. We'll say this again. We'll leave this up there for just a second. It is the result of unresolved, unforgiven anger and resentment that is built up over time. So it's unresolved anger in our lives. It is a calcification, if you will, of unresolved anger, and it builds up over time. It's not something that just happens like that. It is something that takes a little bit of time, and you just let it ferment. You just let it calcify. You just let it build up over time, and it just hardens and hardens and hardens, and that root goes deeper and deeper and deeper. And it may be the result of a painful experience or an interaction that you had with somebody in your life. And that experience may end up turning into a belief. And whenever it becomes a belief, what happens is it becomes a set of goggles that you begin to view life through. And it's how you see other people as you view everybody through this lens of bitterness. Maybe it's how you see a certain group of people. It even is going to just change how you live your life. In fact, you may have experienced a hurt, a disappointment, an offense, and you may not even know that it's taken root. Why? Bill? It's invisible. And in some seasons, you know what that root's going to do? It's just going to pop up. And then in other seasons, it's going to recede. But the root is still there. And this writer, the author, is saying that this root of bitterness is in here. It's in your heart. And maybe you can't initially see it, but you better be careful. You better watch out. that it doesn't grow up to corrupt your relationships and the people you love. Here's how I've got it in my notes and in yours, that bitterness is an invisible root that produces visible fruit. It's an invisible root that produces visible fruit. And you want to know what the problem with bitterness is? Is you don't know you're bitter until you are already bitter. It just kind of sneaks up on you. So let's just kind of think through this. Let's just kind of process this out loud. What does bitterness look like? If bitterness was going to display in my life or in your life, what might be some signs, right? If we could put some handles on this, some labels on this of what could bitterness look like in my life or in your life, what might be some indications that our unresolved anger is resulting in some bitterness in our lives. And so let's just do 3 quick signs of unresolved anger, all right? So 3 signs. Here's sign number 1. We'll call it this, the fume and spew. All right, the fume and spew. Now, I think I'm proud of this. I think I'm proud of this. All right. I don't think I've thrown up in 15 years. All right. I hate doing it. I can't stand it. It is not my thing. I know that some people just like, that's how they feel better and those things. I would just like rather lie down on a cold floor and just let everything just like, okay, no, I'm going to fight this. I'm going to fight this. I'm going to keep my streak going. Right. That's kind of where I am. And there are other people, though, that are not like that. There's some people that just love to spew, to vomit, Technicolor rainbow, whatever kind of thing you want to think about. There are just some people, that's how they do it. They're like, my stomach doesn't feel good. You know what would make me feel good? If I could just throw up, then I would just feel so much better if I could just get it out of my system. And I don't know, you don't have to tell me, please don't tell me, if that's how you view life, right? But that's just how some people are. And they're like, I just got to get it out. I just got to get it out. I just got to get it out of my stomach, and then I'll just feel so much better. And you know what that's crazy is whenever you listen to people talk about their anger, they talk the same way. Like, man, if I could just get it out of me. I just got to get it out of me. And if I can just do that and just projectile it all over the place, it's like, then I would just feel so much better. Just got to get it out of me. And you know what, generally, what I hear from people who throw up is they do feel better after they're done. And I'm sure if that's your default mechanism for how you deal with your anger, I'm sure you feel better after you do it. But have you ever stopped to think, how do the people who you just threw up on feel? I don't know that they feel great. I don't know that they're in like this great frame of mind. Here's the thing. Spewing all over someone is always damaging to the relationship. And it's toxic to your heart and soul. Because while you may think that you're making yourself feel better, you're wrong. Listen to what Galatians 5:19 says. It says, whenever you follow the desires of your sinful nature, the results are very clear. Sexual immorality, impurity, lustful pleasures, idolatry, sorcery, hostility, quarreling, jealousy, outbursts of anger. So I've just got to get it out of me. I've just got to get it out of my system. I've just got to spew it out with my words or with my thumbs, however I need to do it, is actually an indication that we are living by the sinful nature and not according to the Spirit, according to Galatians 5. It's not life according to the Spirit of God. Spewing isn't living according to the Spirit. So that could be a sign, though, that there's some bitterness inside of our heart, right? If I'm just a fumer and a spewer. Here's sign number 2, payback. As we find this just longing to pay somebody back for what they have done to us. And it's whenever we get here, it feels kind of good to follow the words of the great theologian, Carrie Underwood. Whenever she said, I dug my keys into the side of his pretty little souped up 4-wheel drive, carved my names into the leather seats. I took a Louisville Slugger to both headlights, slashed all 4, I got that part wrong again, okay, but so slashed all 4 tires. Maybe next time he'll think before he, fill it in, cheat. Oh, you guys know the song, okay. It's a catchy tune, isn't it? Really, really is. But I don't know, whenever you hear that song come on, the radio or Spotify, Apple Music, whatever it is that you listen to, do you ever just want to go to Carrie and just go, you know what, I don't know that that's going to work. I don't know that he is actually going to think next time before he cheats. I don't think this is going to work. And I think that you may feel good momentarily taking that Louisville Slugger to all those headlights, but it's actually not going to resolve anything, is it? Somebody said this, that revenge is like cotton candy. It tastes really good in the moment, but it does nothing for you. And how many of us here have walked in today, and whenever it comes to our anger, it comes to our bitterness, we have been feeding ourselves on a diet of cotton candy. And we're wondering why our soul is starving to death. Romans chapter 12 says that we are to never take revenge, and that we are to do things in such a way that everyone can see that we are honorable. Friends, I'll just be straight with you. Revenge is a lie that keeps you and me from getting well. It is seeking to assume that someone else is responsible for the condition that I am in, so now I'm going to even the score. And even if it is true that the other person has wronged you or wronged me, revenge never works. Nobody has ever blamed their way to happiness in this life. But whenever you and I, we find ourselves in this place to where it's like, that's just what we're longing for is revenge, 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 it could be a sign that the root of bitterness is taking root in our hearts. Here's the last sign. We'll call it the silent attack. The silent attack, this is sometimes referred to as the silent treatment, okay? The silent treatment. Now, let's just get this off to the side. Sometimes going silent is the right thing to do, right? It might be the best way to avoid saying things that you would later regret. It is okay. Listen to me. Everybody needs to hear this. It is okay to have an unexpressed thought in this world, all right? Just because you think it doesn't mean you have to say it, all right? It is okay to keep your mouth shut at times. It is okay in moments whenever you don't know how to say something or you just need time to process it, to just say, I'm going to step to the side for just a second and then we'll come back and do this. But that's not what we're talking about. Then the silent treatment is, I'm going to treat you as though you don't exist by not speaking to you. I read an article this week. I don't remember how old the article was, but it was a Japanese couple, and they'd been married for a long time. And the article was astounded because this husband had not spoken to his wife in 20 years. 20 years. Just grunts and those kind of things. And the reason why he talked to the newspaper, but he would not talk to his wife, is he told the interviewer, he's like, I resent her for how much attention she gives to our children. So I don't speak to her anymore. Now, eventually he apologized, and somehow they were still married. I cannot imagine doing that marriage counseling there. But that's what we're talking about. And you and I know that the silent treatment has killed more friendships, more working relationships, more marriages than we probably care to know. And it's not biblical. Ephesians 4:26, we shared this already in the series, but it says, don't sin by letting anger control you. Don't let the sun go down while you're still angry and give the devil a foothold. Which is just another way of saying, resolve this as quickly as you can, because holding on to it, silent treatment, people, isn't going to help anyone. Watch out that no poisonous root of bitterness grows up to trouble you, corrupting many. Now note there, let's just look at verse 15 again. It says, it will trouble you. So this is something about you. This is something we've got to be on guard for our own sake, because bitterness eventually turns to skepticism. Skepticism will turn to cynicism. And cynicism leads to emptiness and loneliness. Because bitterness is the enemy of love because it makes you unforgiving. It's an enemy of hope because it keeps you living in the past. It's an enemy of faith because you stop trusting anyone but yourself. So bitterness, you better watch out because it will trouble you. But then notice what it says at the very end, just those last couple of words. But it will also corrupt many. And literally what the author is saying is that it will defile, it will stain, it will pollute many people. And I want you to hear me, I want you to listen to me, just do not miss this. Whenever my life revolves around this anger and resentment that I have, what do I want to do? I want to invite as many people into my misery and bitterness and anger as I possibly can. And that's what we do. We grow angry, we grow bitter, and so we want everyone else to be as angry as we are. How do we know this to be true? Well, one, social media. We can see this. This is what plays out. But two, maybe more importantly, it's because the Bible tells us that's what's going to happen. Proverbs chapter 22, listen to these verses, 24 and 25. He says that don't befriend angry people or associate with hot-tempered people. Or why? Because you will learn to be like them and endanger your soul. So what is he saying? He's saying that anger, that bitterness is contagious. It will spread. And whenever we invite people into our bitterness, what we are doing is we are becoming a stumbling block for them, for their faith and their peace. Because listen, one bitter person can destroy a small group, no? One bitter person can divide a family, no? One bitter person can ruin a marriage. So watch out. You better watch out that no poisonous root of bitterness grows up to trouble you, corrupting many. So if that's the problem, that this root of bitterness can get into our heart and our soul, can choke the life out of us, harm us, trouble us, and then corrupt others as well, then really the question of the day is well, how do we kill the root of bitterness, right? How do we get down to what is really causing all of these things? How do we find the spiritual roundup that we can just douse onto this root of bitterness that is deep down inside of our heart and our soul? And it begins whenever we learn to expose the objects of our bitterness. That's the first step, is we expose the objects of our bitterness. Okay? We've got to let sunshine in to kill what is dark. In fact, Ephesians 5 says this: take no part in the worthless deeds of evil and darkness. Instead, expose them. Expose them. See, some of y'all that are here today, you're watching online and you're listening to this, you're wrestling with bitterness because of something that happened to you a long time ago. It's in the past. And it's something that you can't or you weren't able to do anything about. And so we have to look at us and say, have I actually gone to the place of doing the hard work of heart work, the slow work of soul work, and just asking myself, why am I chronically paralyzed and just struggling with this idea, with bitterness? I mean, maybe you're wrestling with bitterness right now because one of your parents consistently manipulated you throughout your entire childhood when you were growing up. Maybe you're bitter right now because you had a close friend who betrayed your trust and that situation was never resolved. Or maybe you were overlooked for a promotion at work and you put in the time, the energy, the effort, and somebody else who didn't deserve it got the promotion. Some of you, you're bitter right now because your spouse cheated on you. And it still hurts, even though that you decided that you were going to stay together. It still hurts. Some of you, you're wrestling with bitterness just simply because something changed on you and no one asked your opinion, right? It's like the world just decided this was different now and nobody asked me my opinion. You know, like, why didn't anybody check in with me? And the world just went on. And here's the thing. I want to just make sure we're clear. Your anger isn't necessarily wrong. That anger can be completely justified. Anger is an honest and healthy emotion. And in many cases, what we're talking about, what happened to you was wrong. Nobody's denying that. But here's the thing. Your unresolved anger may have become a poison. And you've allowed it to get inside of your heart. And so your anger isn't wrong, but you allowed your anger to take you to the wrong place. And your heart got hardened. And the result was bitterness. Because what bitterness does is it hardens your heart on the inside and it hardens your features on the outside. It's not hard to spot a bitter person, is it? It's pretty clear. You can see it on their face. You can see it in their demeanor. Because bitterness hardens your heart, then it hardens your features. And it's not just what you eat that determines your health, it's what eats you. And bitterness is an emotional and spiritual cancer. And it's usually caused by someone else's words and actions. But here's the thing, no one can make you bitter. Only you can do that. And so at some point in your life, we have to do the just a grown-up thing and just say, I'm going to draw a line in the sand and just say, no, I am not going to become a bitter person. It's just not going to happen. Not going to let it be this case. It doesn't mean that I'm going to deny reality. It doesn't mean I'm just going to take lemons and make lemonade or any of that kind of stuff. That's not what we're talking about. It means at some point that I am going to decide to choose to extend this one word that all of us have probably a love-hate relationship with. We love it whenever we get it, and we hate it whenever we have to give it. And that word is forgiveness. We love to be forgiven. We love to hear people say, it's all right, don't worry about it, it's forgiven, it's all gone. But whenever we're the one that has to extend it, it is so much harder because we just get into this place, it's like, no, but no. No, they were wrong, man. Don't you know what they did to me, the hurt that they did? And so my anger is a righteous anger, right? Jesus was righteously angry, and so am I. Can I encourage you just real quick? You know that Jesus' ministry lasted 1,278 days, and only on one of them did he ever flip tables over. For 1,277 other days of his ministry, he was an instrument of peace, a healer to the sick, a friend to the foreigner, and a forgiver of the sinner. One day, he let that righteous anger just flip those tables over. Every other day was a different day. So what are we going to do? Well, we are going to expose the objects of our bitterness. We're going to do the hard work of heart work and try to figure out what is it that is causing bitterness in me. Here's the second thing, is we're going to give up our claim to revenge and blame. We're going to give up our claim to revenge and blame. Off to the side, you could just write this: you cannot remain bitter and find wholeness. You cannot be bitter and whole at the same time, because it's rotten, it's corrosive. So what we do is we just say, all right, I'm going to lay the card down. You know, I've got the ace of spades in my hand, and I could trump everything that you ever say to me by just laying that card down, and I've got the ultimate trump card, because what you did to me was wrong. But here's what we're going to do. I'm going to take that card, and I'm laying it off to the side, because I choose not to hold this against you. Ephesians 4 says this: get rid of all bitterness, rage, anger, harsh words, slander, as well as all types of evil behavior. Instead, be kind to each other, tenderhearted, forgiving one another, just as God through Christ has forgiven you. So friends, I want you to listen to me. Whenever someone desires forgiveness, it is your gift to give out of the generosity of your spirit to them. But even if someone does not desire your forgiveness, it is critical to still give it so that you can be free from the root of bitterness in your heart. It will enslave you if you do not extend that gift of forgiveness to someone, even if they're not asking for it. So we're going to give up our claim to revenge and blame, and we're going to offer forgiveness. And then the last thing we're going to do is we're going to get to the root of the problem. We're going to get down to the root. Remember, we got to get the root out, right? So what is the root of the problem whenever it comes to bitterness? And it's this: it's my heart. It's your heart. It's the heart that's the problem, because people's locations and situations don't cause me to sin. They're where the sin of my heart gets revealed. That's what those things do. For example, you think about this. Whenever you know someone has damaged your reputation and you get mad, why do you get mad? You ever ask yourself this question? Why does this make me so mad? Why am I so angry about this? Okay, and it's probably twofold. Number one, you are upset because your reputation was damaged, okay? So that does upset you a little bit. But you want to know what the second hidden kind of reason is? It's because you don't want people to know how important your reputation is to you. That's the thing down inside, right? That's that root that's all the way down in there. You don't want people to know that your reputation is important to you. How people view you is important to you. You don't want anybody to believe that. In fact, you don't even want to believe that about yourself. But it's true. So what do? Well, we either blow up Or if that's like the thing that we're really focused on, maybe we just stuff it. And we go, I'm not angry. I'm not angry. I'm not angry. I'm telling you, I'm not angry. I'm fine, right? I'm fine. But yet there's this part of our heart that's just like, but I would really like to get back at them. Man, if I could damage their reputation too, that'd be so good. But no, I'm a Christian. So I've forgiven them. But what happens is the root is still there. And you will find that root will defile you, because eventually it will grow up and it will distort your life unless you're willing to see that you really do have anger, that you really were hurt by this. I mean, people walk around all the time, I'm not an angry person, I'm not an angry person, I'm not an angry person. But then suddenly the right opportunity pops up. And a root may be down there, or a whole tree may be down there, right? And then it's like that trap door opens up, and it's like the right conditions are there, and just boom, it just shoots up. And it's like, it's not just a tree, it's an entire forest that has been growing down in your heart that entire time. And it's just like, oh my goodness, it's distorting everything. Friends, sin is a matter of the heart before it's ever an issue of behavior. And so that means that yours and my biggest problem in life exists inside of us, not outside of us. It's the evil inside of us that connects us to the evil outside of us. So I must confess, I am my greatest problem. That's where we got to get. I'm the biggest problem. I have identified the problem, and it is me. That's where things lie. And if I can say this, and if I can confess this, what I'm saying is like, I don't need so much to be rescued from people, locations, situations, but what I'm saying is like, I am in desperate need of the grace that is alone able to rescue me from me, that is found only through the blood of Jesus Christ. That's what I need more than anything. I can escape situations, I can escape relationships, but I cannot escape me. So we've got to do the hard work of heart work. Lean into the grace of God to be able to expose, to destroy this root of bitterness. Because the problem is, and this is the bottom line, if we don't, a bitter root will produce bitter fruit. That'll be what is on display in our lives. So my challenge to you this week is very simple, but not easy. Is, will you do the hard work of heart work, the slow work of soul work, and will you identify the root in your heart? I can't do this for you. This is only you. And this is you and the Lord getting along to just to be quiet before him. And you're just asking the question, God, is there any bitterness in me? And if so, why? Where? If so, towards whom is this bitterness, directed? For what reason? And then be specific. Like maybe you just need to write down a sentence to where somebody will never ever see it, but it's just like, I am bitter towards blank because blank. And then after we've done the hard work of identifying, here's what's causing me to be bitter, then what we're going to do is we're now going to change it, and we're going to commit to pray for them. And we're going to pray that God would give us the strength to be able to extend forgiveness. And we're going to change the words around, and we're going to say, okay, God, I'm bitter towards them because of this. So Lord, I choose to forgive them from my heart because they fill in the blank. And here's the thing, you pray that prayer one time, I'm just going to go out there. It's probably going to take more than once. Depending on the level of hurt, the level of pain that is there, it's probably going to take a little bit. But that is the prayer to pray. And that is the direction to go. Because we have to deal with this root. Because here's the thing, bitterness always feels justified. We always feel justified in our own bitterness. Because it's what they did, it's what they said, and everybody would agree that what they did and what they're doing is wrong. So I'm bitter, and yeah, I'm bitter, but it's justified. But you want to know what? Instead of bitterness, Jesus chose forgiveness. And he extended his grace through his death on a cross so that you and I, we could be set free. And he calls us not only to extend forgiveness to others for their sake, but for our sake. And for the health and for the salvation of our own souls. Because it's whenever we are free from bitterness, that we are able to pursue the life that God wants us to have. Whenever we embrace grace, we reject bitterness. And today, you may be listening to all this and just be going, there's no way I can do this on my own. And the answer is, you are absolutely correct. You will not be able to do this in your own strength and in your own power. You are going to need the power of the Holy Spirit living inside of you, which is only available to you through the life, death, burial, and resurrection of Jesus Christ and making him your Lord and your Savior. If you're watching online, you have never made that decision, then you need to visit that website today and say, I'm ready to make this decision. If you're in this room today and you know and you can sense that root of bitterness is there and you're like, I can't do this on my own, it's because you need Jesus. And if so, then let's begin today. Grab your connection card, your welcome home card, and just say, I'm ready to begin my relationship with Jesus. But to those of us who have already made that decision, just hear me. The slow work of soul work and the hard work of heart work to root out this root of bitterness in your heart is going to be one of the most difficult things that you are ever going to do. It is also going to be the most beneficial thing that you ever do as well. So don't fall for the trap. Watch out. Watch out that this poisonous root of bitterness does not grab hold of you, destroy you, and the others around you. So God, today we are asking for your wisdom, for your direction. Help us to see what needs to be seen. Help us to hear your voice, and would you please reveal to us what needs to be rooted out. And God, for my friends today, this is a difficult message because what they have gone through is painful. It is hard. It was wrong. I pray that you would give them comfort in this moment, but also help them to see that holding on to this is not hurting the person that hurt them. They're hurting themselves. And that you want them to live a life that is free from all this bitterness. And in your Spirit's way, whether gentle or firm, please grab our attention. In Jesus' name, amen.